Welcome to another day in Nova Scotia. This is the wilderness just outside our towns and cities. Out here, the wind, the land, and the water take shape to form homes for all sorts of plants and animals. Rivers, such as the Salmon River that runs through Truro, Nova Scotia, supplies homes and resources for a variety of species. Years ago, the Salmon and Stewiacke rivers were home to large numbers of the most majestic fish in Nova Scotian waters, the Atlantic salmon. In this video, we're going to introduce you to an Atlantic salmon named Freddie. We'll talk about how Freddie came to be and where he'll be going throughout his life. The way in which Atlantic salmon produce young fish like Freddie is really special. Freddie's parents would have been born in a river similar to the rivers that you know. Freddie's parents, like many of us, eventually outgrow their home and move out. But moving out for Freddie's parents meant going into the ocean. After many years, when Freddie's parents were ready to bring Freddie into the world, they returned to the same section of river that they were born. How crazy is that? Imagine yourself leaving home for years, traveling all over the world, and then making it back to the very first home you've ever had. That's impressive. Freddie's parents have quite a few obstacles to navigate when returning though. They have to make it past the many animals that depend on salmon for food. They have to make it over waterfalls and other obstructions to get back to their birthplace. It's certainly no easy task, but they've been doing it for years and years. After they've made it to their old home, they have some house cleaning to do. Freddie's mom will go through the process of digging a small hole in the gravel called a red. In this red is where Freddie and his sisters and brothers will be safe as eggs. In the spring, something amazing begins to happen. There's signs of life in the eggs. Just like when someone in your house wakes up in the morning, they wake up those around them. One by one, Freddie and his siblings begin to hatch. At this point, the babies are known as alevins. They are still too young to venture out far. This would be like a baby in its crib. But before long, these small fish grow into what's known as a fry. Salmon fries start to explore their neighborhood while not straying too far from home. As the fish continue to grow, they make their way into the stage of life that you're at now. They are known as purr. If you look closely, you can see sort of stripes along their sides known as purr marks. These purr are fairly independent and can travel within their river relatively freely. After this, the fish will make their way into a sort of high school. They are then preparing to leave home for the first time as smolts. When this happens, they will leave the river and go to the ocean as their parents did and start the cycle all over. Now, that's supposed to be the story of how Freddie was born, but unfortunately grown-ups haven't been doing the best job of keeping salmon homes safe. So Freddie was actually born a different way. Freddie will come from a hatchery, a place where baby salmon are raised by people like you and me with the hope that we can return them to the wild and help them repair their natural homes. Although Freddie will start his journey in an aquarium and be looked after by you, he will eventually be returned to the stream to carry out his life cycle. And this is where your story really starts. You've been tasked with taking care of Freddie and his siblings as part of the Fish Friends program. When Freddie is ready to return to the stream, there's going to be some things he's looking forward to. Clean, cold water for one thing. Salmon love clear water free from silt. Imagine yourself trying to breathe in a smoky, smoggy air. Aside from this, if all of the spaces in the gravel fills up with silt, there's no place for Freddie to hide from the animals that depend on him for food, or any place for his friends to be born. Keeping river water clean is a great way to help Freddie grow up healthy. The same can be said about cool water. If there's enough shade on a river, or if the river has deep pools, the water temperature typically remains cool. Trees and streamside brush have a lot to do with this. Freddie will be looking for banks that are well covered in vegetation. Vegetation along the stream banks provides shady, cool water. It also protects the river banks from depositing too much silt in the river when we have high rains. That's a win-win. So it seems as though Freddie wants some really simple things. So what's making it hard? Well, if we just look at the rivers around your schools, for example, they're very silty. Why? We've removed a lot of the trees and plant life alongside of them to develop things like homes for people or farms to support jobs. So now their banks are a bit weaker, and in heavy rains all of the silt and runoff washes right into the river. In the same way, we've removed a lot of the shade on the river, and so the water is warmer and has less protection for Freddy. Trees that fall into the river not only provide protection for fish, but they can also help to form deep pools. So if there's no trees along the banks, well, you get the picture. So what can we do? Well, it's important to realize that although things like farming can cause issues for fish, it's also very important for humans. Farming provides a lot of families with food and other resources. So it's not as simple as stopping farming. What we have to do is find a way to use land sustainably. Think of this as finding a way to keep everyone, humans, fish, and all other members of our ecosystem happy. An example could be farmers who plant more trees and vegetation along the riverbanks near their farms. Humans have to become what are called stewards or protectors of the ecosystem. The other members of the ecosystem are depending on us to solve these problems, and we have to realize that we are depending on them. Farming sustainably is a really big task and might be out of reach for you right now. So what can you do as a student? Take part in the Fish Friends program, of course. By raising Freddy and his siblings, you are helping to restore Atlantic salmon to our waters. We have one last thought before you go. Atlantic salmon are what is known as a keystone species. This means that they are really important to all of the other animals and plants where they live. Many animals depend on Atlantic salmon for food. Plants use them as nutrients after they pass away. Some humans use them as a food source, and many others interact with them through things like recreational fishing and proper catch and release. So although it may seem like a small thing you are doing by raising and releasing Freddy, you should realize how much you are helping your local ecosystem. From Freddy and fish friends everywhere, thank you.